As you might be able to tell, I've been on a road trip. I am still on a road trip, and so I've had several hours to myself, and I've actually used this time to re-listen to or reread Bret Easton Ellis's novel American Psycho. I say read in quotation marks because hearing something read out loud, it's not exactly like reading it on the page, and so but it's still, it still counts. I know it doesn't take quite as much energy or stick-to-itiveness, let's say, but in any case, I've been very intrigued by how much I am enjoying this book, which when I first read it back in 1990 when it came out, I was just so horrified by it. I couldn't finish it. It was so upsetting to me at the time that, and I was a rather sensitive lad of 19. I guess maybe I've toughened up a little. I don't know. The scenes of carnage are still quite difficult to get through. The explicitn's of the carnage is the main thing that I think makes it difficult. Not so much the fact that it's there, the fact it's how much of it is there, how ruthlessly it is cataloged. But I can see now that it's all a part of the same kind of intelligence that went into the writing of the book itself, the perspective, the point of view of the now iconic character of Patrick Bateman. This is somebody who notices little things like brand names. He's always talking about what everybody is wearing, who the designer is, and and like what they're ordering at these various swank New York restaurants, and so forth. And so he goes into as much ruthless detail about these kinds of things as he does when he's talking about torturing and murdering people. And he also goes into the same kind of details when he's talking about his interests in various musical artists such as Genesis or Huey Lewis and the News or Whitney Houston. So it's brilliant. It's brilliantly written, and I definitely can see that now. And I think what's interesting is I think it's more accepted to see it that way now, to read American Psycho as I don't know, dare I say, a modern classic. Certainly not an easy book to read, not a pleasant book to read, although very funny. I've been laughing out loud much more often than I thought I would. There's a certain very modern, very dark kind of wit to it that we know this by now, since the movie that was made in 2000, directed by Mary Harron, who is a woman and who I think calls herself a feminist, but nevertheless, saw that there was something worthwhile in this book, and so that she really helped to bring the humor out. But I think even if with Christian Bale's performance. But even if the movie had never existed, I just, it's a very funny book. In addition to being a very disturbing and very upsetting and difficult to read book in many places. But there's definitely a substance to it that I guess I wasn't sure at the time when I read it as a lad. It just sort of seemed exploitative and I don't know, just disgusting and cruel. But it seems that it was all, it's easier for me now to see the purposefulness behind the authorship of it. And I even see a bit of, I think maybe some of it has rubbed off on my writing style just a tad, just a touch. I see certain things that, probably ended up intriguing me enough later to, they all go into your mind somewhere, and all of your influences, you never really are able to fully take stock of them. But it's likely that stylistically speaking, there's a real there's somewhat of an influence. Although I could never write about so ruthlessly and so relentlessly about brand names. I don't know shit about fashion. I don't know how dishes are prepared at swank restaurants and all of that. But all of that is there in the book. Again, I think for a purpose, to help serve this message, and the message is ultimately one about nihilism and the consequences of nihilism, which maybe Bret Easton Ellis didn't necessarily believe in much of anything himself at the time that he wrote it. Maybe he still doesn't. I don't know. But still, I think it's a rather scathing depiction of nihilism, because ultimately this is what you're left with. You're left with something incredibly bleak. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here, are the first lines of the book, just like in Dante. So there's a lot more I could say about the novel. I'll say this. I have a very strong memory of the book American Psycho as a sort of watershed moment in the culture, because it was the first time, I think, that the left, that liberals were censorious in a really in a way that was just that today is sort of standard, but at the time, up until the publication of American Psycho, there really hadn't been that I can remember a similar kind of event in which there was an effort to see to it that some book or some other piece of art or whatever you want to call it, was to try an attempt to what they would say, get it canceled today, and that there really was there was a huge movement against this book when it was written, when it was published. I know Ellis had gained some notoriety. He was already sort of a famous author. He'd had a movie made after one of it, made Less Than Zero, based on one of his novels. So he was kind of a high-profile author, but they really came at him hard, and his original publisher dropped him, and he had to publish with another company that was not as prestigious. I mean, he still did well. He still got a huge advance for writing the book. I'm not saying that he became suffering, penniless, starving artist or anything like that, but he I just remember there was a massive backlash against American Psycho, not only from all of the feminists, but the critics too. They had nothing good to say about it. I think they had praised Ellis up to that point, but it was very much, and saw his talent and everything, but it was just very much in the wind. It was like one of those things where if you want to do and say what the cool and popular and influential people are doing and saying, then you would want to weigh in against Bret Easton Ellis's book American Psycho. And this was the first time, and I think it was in 1990 that the book was published, first time in my memory that that was ever a thing that was coming from the left. The first time I remember where freedom of speech was under assault because of the left, because of liberalism. Up until that point, liberalism had always been on the side of in favor of freedom of speech, and maybe that was just for cynical reasons, as some have argued. Maybe it was just because it was up until that point it was harder for liberals or liberal ideas or ideas that would be considered left leaning ideas to be put out there to be published, and so they would more often get censored because the cultural conservatism held more sway. And so maybe it's true that the left turned against freedom of speech right at the time that the left became most prominent. I still think that there are actual principled people out there who are against censorship and in favor of freedom of speech. It's just they seem to be harder to find these days on the left. But in 1990, it was things were different. It was a different kind of world, so this was a kind of watershed moment for me once I began to apprehend what was happening in the culture. I remember purchasing a copy of the book because I was a very anti-censorship kind of person, and at the time very much somebody who considered himself a liberal, and I wanted to I was a little appalled by this effort to shut this book down, to shut this author down, to try to badmouth him at every turn. And I remember his the interview that he gave, I believe it was to Rolling Stone, and how unapologetic he was. It was great. I mean, he was just a legend as far as what he said. Because today, if somebody comes under fire like that, chances are he or she will not be defiant. Chances are he or she will say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I upset so many people. Let me have dialogue. I think I've been misunderstood." But Ellis, I remember in this interview, just said, Okay, feminists, if you don't like my book, that's fine. Read another book. Read Amy Tan. Read The Color Purple. I don't care what you read. I think that was close to the exact quote that he gave in that article. It was pretty cool. Just sort of you don't like it, that's fine. I don't care. Again, to paraphrase someone famous or infamous from the Bible, what I have written, I have written. It seemed to be what he was saying. I also wanted to talk about something specific, a specific scene in the book that really struck me. But I think since I've taken up enough time in this video just talking about my reappraisal of American Psycho, I think I'll wait to do that in a different video. I've still got a few more hours ahead of me, so maybe I'll listen a bit more to the book and put forth my ideas on this one particular scene that really stood out to me this time around. You've got that to look forward to next. Thanks for watching. My name's Andy Nowicki. Check out my work at altrightnovelist.com, and please check out my latest book, The Insurrectionist, which can be found at terrorhousepress.com or on Amazon.